I'm Gerald Bentley. This is LVWS Confidential. Tonight, we are joined by one of the pillars of the Las Vegas wrestling scene, Cody Cut Throat Croft. Cody, hey, thanks for joining us here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I've been actually following your work with Las Vegas wrestling scene for quite a bit, and I
Awesome.
think that you're putting out some really good interviews. I enjoyed the Alice Blair one.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
know, it's interesting too because people just don't get a chance to really meet the personalities behind the characters. And I mean, really, hey, one of the drawbacks of pro wrestling is you just don't get the TV time. And
yeah,
that's
and I
true even at WWE, AEW. You want to know more about the wrestlers that you watch, and it's hard to really get much behind the scene. If you're lucky on TV, you get a 1 minute promo.
well, and even with the state of the industry in general right now, there's a lot of wrestlers, which is exciting,
Hmm.
but we're kind of left to make our own content, which I think should be the way that it is anyway. There's a lot of tools that are disposal that we could be taking full advantage of. You
Sure.
might have to learn how to edit some video and stuff like that, but that was something that I learned how to do over the pandemic. Is I'm tired of asking people to do stuff for me. I have to do it for myself. So
Hmm.
that's a lesson that I hope that people take away. But you help aid that as well as everybody else at the Las Vegas wrestling scene, and y'all are very valued and appreciated.
Oh, thanks. That's great. Yeah, I mean it's definitely synergistic too because you couldn't do a show, you couldn't support a website without that kind of vibrant community that you have in Las Vegas with really with everybody, with future stars of wrestling, with Versus Pro, with Pride Style, Grap House, Dark Arts, Big Valley. There's just such a community, community that's growing and active. And heck, I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. It's not
It's crazy
intentional
when
at
you
all.
say them all out loud and then you
Yeah.
say them in succession of one another, because there used to be nothing. And it's a very, very cool time to be involved in the industry in any facet, let alone just being involved in the industry within Las Vegas. I was born and raised here,
Okay.
so it's a pretty exciting time to be around.
Yeah. What got you started in professional wrestling?
I grew up being a sick kid, and I was fortunate enough to have been able to stay with my grandparents for a pretty long time. And
Okay.
they had a house up on Lone Mountain. And if I got enough tinfoil, I could wrap it around the rabbit ears on the TV antenna upstairs and catch NWA Wildside and ECW Hardcore TV.
Okay.
So I was my story, I don't think, is necessarily any different than anyone else's, with maybe the exception of I overcame some obstacles. I just like everybody else. It sounds cliche to say, but no, I just love wrestling. And then I ended up having a major health surgery. I had the
Hmm.
third lobe of my right lung removed, so I had a lobectomy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then upon recovering for that, I asked the doctors, well, do you think this would be a possibility? To which they promptly said, no, that's probably not going to be something that you can do. But I took that as well, let's just see what happens.
Hmm.
And that's what really got me involved in the industry.
Okay. Just the drive to do it because I can definitely relate to that. I broke my back in junior high school playing basketball.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it took about 2 years to fully recover. So there were plenty of nights that I was laying awake and trying to watch ECW on the local independent channel and, you know, leaning over, moving the TV around to try and get a good visual to see what Raven and Tommy Dreamer were doing to each other.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely relatable. And sometimes those struggles that you go through, that's what gives you that drive to struggle through, obstacles in life. And heck, we were just talking to a young wrestler who started out in Las Vegas and is trying to get back. He's targeting coming back to FSW, Chris Brady. And he talked about just having to overcome your own attitude that everything's just going to come to you and realizing you have to work. And I think like your story where you had to work just to be normal, just to overcome that health adversity, I think it gives you an extra drive just in everything you do.
Yeah, and that was something that I think that pro wrestling can make you a better person. And I'm also very, very proud of Chris Brady for going on any forum and also addressing the fact of like, hey man, maybe the problem was laying within myself, and
Yeah.
that's really how you grow, and that's an example of pro wrestling making you a better person. And I'm very fortunate, I'm very thankful, and I've got a lot of kids, like I have
Uh-huh.
a lot of students
Yeah.
that I've been able to help, and there's new ones coming in every day at Future Stars of Wrestling. And I don't limit my help to just FSW. I extend my help to as many people as possible. Chris Brady is one of those people, and I'm definitely proud to hear that he's giving it his best shot and he really wants to come back to Vegas and prove that he's
Hmm.
a changed guy.
Yeah. And he's putting in the work,
Oh yeah,
he's putting in the work. He's rebuilt, and you just get that opportunity, get that match, and then it can catch fire. So where did
absolutely.
you after the lobectomy, where did you get started in wrestling? Because like you said, it was a different era.
So I started with Adrenaline Unleashed, which, I think that I was the first student to sign up to Adrenaline Unleashed, but I was also
Okay.
one of the first people to leave Adrenaline Unleashed. So I think that at this point, for anybody that was around, it was around 2008, 2009. There was a gentleman by the name of Kent Wilson, who was a graduate from the UPW wrestling school. And that was the one that was in California that Ron Bass was attached to.
Okay.
So pretty prolific trainers there. Tom Howard, who is the boyfriend of Zoe Starks, Lacey Ryan. So
Uh-huh.
if you need to know the caliber of trainer that he is, you can see his influence very much in what Zoe does.
Sure.
And Kent also had some help with a gentleman by the name of Antonio Maestre, and there was a few other local guys that would come in to Adrenaline Unleashed from time to time. So that's kind of where I started learning, but it became very evident to me that they were not going to be running any shows.
Hmm.
And then not long into my training at Adrenaline Unleashed, that's when I noticed a flyer for Future Stars of Wrestling. And that's when I became involved with Joe DeFalco. And I did the very first FSW show. There was a few other people that were on that show that are definitely still around. Remy Marcel, the
Hmm.
86er, is one of those guys, as well as Funny Bone. And I mean, that's like, I kind of was one of the first people on the resurgence of the independents when it comes to Vegas. And saying that out loud is absolutely insane now that I think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few names that come up all the time talking to some of the newer wrestlers, the guys and the ladies. Remy Marcel, Cut Throat Cody, Sin Bodie, Funny Bone. I mean, they're in some order, those names generally come up.
Yes, they do.
So, yeah. So, besides your career as a competitor with multiple championships,
Yes.
what,
And multiple match of the years.
yeah,
I care about the match of the years quite a bit, and I'm very thankful for those.
yeah, what motivated you to get into the the mentorship side of it as well.
So you were asking me off air with my last name change.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up in a little bit of, I would say, a broken home type of scenario.
Okay.
And uh unfortunately I was the youngest in my family, so I kind of watched everybody else ahead of me kind of make some choices in life that I probably wouldn't have made. And there's some members of my family that are doing very well now.
Hmm.
So I do want to clarify that before I go any further into deeply discussing some of the things that went on in my childhood.
Sure.
But I just knew that it was something that I knew the way to fix a lot of problems, but unfortunately I did not have the platform in which to speak in the household due to my age. And I grew up knowing that I could help others if I had ever been given the opportunity to do so. And I think that that has what has been like a major drive in me being a mentor for my help doesn't just extend to the world of professional wrestling. My
Hmm.
help can go much further than that, depending on if people want to crack those eggs, and I do my best to give people advice that would help me, that I would follow myself. And I also tend to try to be understanding of every angle of somebody's situation, because what might work for me in their situation might not be the advice I have to give to them. So I'm very thankful to be a mentor in the industry.
Now, one thing that is pretty recent with some of the FSW talent that I thought was really a neat experience, getting up to the New Japan dojo.
Yes, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you got
How did that
the
how did that
picture on
come
the
about?
screen.
Yeah.
So that came about just through sending an email and sending them uh their application is pretty extensive. So me along with some other people that you can see in the picture there, like Frankie Cisco, who's down at Versus, and he's one of the trainers down there.
Hmm.
Thankfully I'm right next to Jacob Austin Young, who is my former tag partner. And what's really cool about this picture down here on the left is that all of those guys like Jordan Oasis and Honest John is photobombing right there. You got Matt Vandegrift, Damian Drake, and Gregory Sharp. Is that most of those guys waited for me to have the B block instead of the A block. And that was a really kind act that those guys did. That's the reason why there's a picture of all of us outside, but on the inside, the only people that were inside of there were Jacob Austin Young, myself, and Frankie Cisco. And you also have some other people, Caden Cassidy, who I wrestled not that long ago. You have, I believe, EJ Sparks and his tag team partner, whose name I need to remember. They're a tag team from Arizona, and
Uh-huh.
it was just a really cool experience, because you're in this room, and then Jay Ramos, who is down there on the right, who's been doing some FSW stuff from Santino's. Um, these guys are incredible workers, and they all did the same thing. You just have to put yourself in a situation to where you actually send the email, uh, do the paperwork, and sometimes you get invited to do really cool things like that.
Yeah. How was the experience? Because I mean, if WWE isn't the pinnacle of professional wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling is. And
Yes.
the dojo system in Japan, it's just different because in America, I mean, obviously there's the NFL, there's Major League Baseball, there's the NHL, there's the NBA, and wrestling, and wrestling, pro wrestling's up there with them. In Japan, there's baseball and there's pro wrestling. So
Yes.
it's there. I mean, it's one of the big two. It's parallel with the NFL in Japan in terms of, if you were to class it by interest level of the sports fans, what's it like actually getting in there and working with New Japan for a little bit?
I think that it's an experience that I would it was very personal for me specifically, because this is something that I maybe a few years ago, maybe they wouldn't have accepted my application. Um, and so it felt like it was something that was earned.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that it was going to be hard work. Not too long ago, FSW did a seminar with Yushin Liger. And
Hmm.
that was kind of like an introduction to what to expect with the amount of squats and tiger push-ups you were going to have to do. But, you know, somebody that really needs to get a lot of credit is actually Remy Marcel, because Remy
Okay.
Marcel had gone to the LA dojo back in the day. And the way that he would start every class was the way that they started their rolls and their drills. And that was something that Remy, Jack Manley, and Saiku, they went down and they did that LA dojo experience, and another gentleman by the name of Scotty Ice. And they came back and they gave all that stuff to us, and it's stuff that they're still doing. So
Okay.
I for people like myself and Gregory Sharp and Jacob Austin Young, who were already kind of molded under the curriculum that New Japan follows, it,
Sure.
there was a lot of stuff that we knew that we were getting ourselves into, and then there was some other stuff that was very advanced, and athletically I was even challenged getting through some of
Hmm.
it. But as long as you showed enough effort to get yourself through it, you can't be
Yeah.
afraid to have egg on your face. So it was a wonderful experience all the way around. And I I take training very seriously, to begin with anyway. And there's members of the 600 club that are running around Vegas, mainly the members of S4TB. uh, when I was training them, we would close out every night with 600 squats.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
yes. So that's something that anyone that spent time with me, you can be assured that I've either made them sweat, cry, or throw up. And hopefully not all three. And if it's only been one or the other, I always hug people afterwards and I tell them how proud I am that they push themselves to try to be better.
And if you read some of the articles on LasVegasWrestlingScene.com, Brian Aronovec, he writes about the opportunity to have the Cody match, which
Yes.
I think the what he means by that is it's not a 5-minute match. There's not a couple of elbows, couple of clotheslines, finisher done. It's a grind, a back and forth, you know, kind of a, yeah, I guess you'd say a strong style match.
Yes.
And that can elevate people, because if you can get through that kind of match, then you can do just about anything. Is that kind of the idea that you have going into the matches?
So the idea that I have is actually one, I'm glad that that's the way that Brian has chose to write it.
Hmm.
I just kind of go into every match specifically with a student that is from Future Stars of Wrestling. And my thought process is I want to give them the absolute best match that they can possibly have. And when I talk to them and I say, well, this is the goal and this is the intention, but you'll never know what the outcome is going to be. And I'm so thankful that you do notice the fact that they are very strong style esque matches.
Hmm.
But I I was coming up oversized and undersized. And when I was undersized, it's kind of drilled in my head like, if you're smaller than everybody, you have to make it seem like all of your strikes are as big as you are small. So you have to really kind of go out there and make people believe that you would have a shot in hell in winning the match.
Sure.
How else am I going to do that other than wrestling for the sake of wrestling? And I think that that's something that every match, I think now, even matches that I have with people like Alexander Hammerstone, Tyler Bateman, Nick Gage, and AJ Gray, those were all Cody matches too. So
Sure.
I think that it was something that I could never say out loud for myself, but I'm glad that it has a name. So it's a very cool thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to ask, out of the younger wrestlers that you've had a chance to work with, who do you feel? I don't want to pick one or two out. Who's shown the most growth in the last couple of years?
I would say Davion Jaco. He is somebody who me and him, we were headbutting really hard for a period of time.
Uh-huh.
And we weren't really getting along. And it was because I was really hard on him. But he contacted me and we had a talk and we patched things up, and he's very receptive to feedback now. And I think I don't think that I've had to yell at him for probably 2 years.
Okay.
Like it's been very, very, like the progress that I've seen in him and just his growth as a person. Andy Delgado is another one that very much within the same threshold. And the last Cody match that I had was with Andy, and that match was a lot of personal frustrations that I think that both of us had with one another that was kind of put out in the open. We literally let dirty laundry air out, and thankfully it didn't get mildewy or smell bad afterwards. So that was those two guys off the top of my head, I would say, have made the most progress to me since when I first started with them. But
Okay.
there's so many to list, but mainly those two right now.
Oh, that's great. So we're getting our feet back under us now as a country, as a city, and an industry. Now that COVID's kind of shaking off,
Thankfully.
what's in store for you here as we roll into 2023?
So as you can see, like I kind of got things set up in the background here. So this is going to be a little studio of itself. And
Okay.
on my YouTube channel, Cut Throat Cody, I did an interview with Kaylee, one of the students, also known as Sierra Twist. And that was a really wonderful interview that I would recommend people checking out. So the Twitch stream I have back up and running to where I'm doing picture-in-picture match interviews for younger wrestlers that need help, and I'll send that off to them. And there's going to be some new stuff that's on the horizon. I can't really go into a lot of detail about it because I have the idea in my head, and over time that will be presented for people to digest. But I really think that it's just more of the same for me. I am getting on my diet to attempt to gain 200 pounds again, and we'll see what happens. And so it's just more of the same, honestly, for me. It's just looking forward to helping as many people as we can moving into the end of 2023.
Great. And then I wanted to ask you something that jumped out at me off of the website, LasVegasWrestlingScene.com. How did you end up working as a cruise ship magician for a little while?
So I should preference the statement by it was a magician's assistant.
Oh, okay.
So I tore my rotator cuff in 2017. And at that point in time, I couldn't work, I couldn't wrestle, and I was in a relationship with somebody that was a magician on a European cruise line.
Okay.
And her and her boss had thought it would be a good idea for me to attempt to become a magician's assistant within 6 months. And not just a magician's assistant within 6 months, like on an actual cruise ship installed doing 2 major stage productions.
Okay.
And needless to say, it was not very successful.
No, I'd
It's
imagine that would be incredibly hard.
it was very difficult for me, and I think that given the time, um, we could have done a lot more with the time that we were given, but unfortunately, cruise ship politics are just as ruthless as pro wrestling politics, brother. I can tell you that
Okay.
much right now. And it was something that it it brought me back in the country sooner than I was anticipating, and I had to get back to wrestling as soon as possible. And not only did I get back to wrestling as soon as possible, but one door closes and another one opens. And during the period of time that I was training to come back to professional wrestling is when I met my wife, Casey.
Okay.
And um, that wedding is also on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, if anybody's interested in watching that, because it was actually worth watching. I'm so
All right.
thankful for her.
Great. So one opportunity led to another one, and you're back at it now. So we'll go
Yep.
ahead and wind it down here. We're coming up towards the end of the time limit. You
Oh,
get to
beautiful.
be the LVWS Confidential Champion of the Week. Just a few quick questions in the championship round here.
Let's do it.
What pro wrestler inspired you the most to get into wrestling?
I would say Mikey Whipwreck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Old time little ECW reference.
Yep. So, I mean, I would say Foley, but everyone says Foley. So I want to say Mikey.
Okay. Great. How about your favorite opponent in your career?
I've had magic with so many people. I'm more than positive, though, that Nick Bugatti was sent here from hell to destroy me.
Okay.
And I've had a couple matches with Nick, and I I don't think there's anybody else in the world I love hitting more than Nick Bugatti.
I think Nic Zander would probably second that. So
Yes, absolutely he would.
you got a couple people behind you who would go ahead and weigh in on that. And what event are you most excited for coming up here in the next few months in Las Vegas?
You know, I think that in Las Vegas specifically, I know of there's some stuff I got to get off my chest when it comes to Damian Drake, and that's going to be on the 4th of next month.
Okay.
So that I'm kind of looking forward to, because I think I've got to tell him some stuff that everybody else likes to say behind his back, but I'm going to be brave enough to say it to his face.
Are you going to tell him that the 90s were a better decade than the 80s?
That's a very real possibility, actually.
Or that, well, he likes Dick Grayson, that Damian Wayne is the best Robin. Maybe that would be a good
I
one
would
for him.
agree with that as well. That might hurt his feelings. We'll see. We'll see what he has to say about that.
Well, with the big Nightwing tattoo, yeah, that may not go over well. Well, hey, great. Thanks a lot for joining us on here, Cody. And go ahead, let everybody know again how to reach out to you on the social medias, what they should look for.
Oh, so go to YouTube, youtube.com/Cutthroat Cody. Go to Twitch, twitch.tv/Cutthroat Cody. Instagram and Twitter @Cutthroat Cody. And once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do for
Absolutely.
everybody. And that's all that I have to get off my chest, I think.
Excellent. Well, hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for stepping into the ring and joining us here on LVWS Confidential. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube right here to Las Vegas Wrestling Scene. Like the video and share it around because we want to get more eyes in the ring here on LVWS. Thanks a lot, Cody. Really great talking to you.
Thank you so much.